let's go about 2 miles from where Ellison was just sitting to the north lawn of the White House, and Kellyanne Conway joins us on this busy Wednesday. Hey, Kellyanne.
Good morning.
Hey, Kellyanne, your boss endorsed Ron DeSantis at a time when he was squaring off against Adam Putnam, and Mr. DeSantis beat Mr. Putnam substantially. He just tweeted this out. Not only did Congressman Ron DeSantis easily win the Republican primary, but his opponent in November is his biggest dream, a failed socialist mayor named Andrew Gillum, who has allowed crime and many other problems to flourish in his city of Tallahassee. This is not what Florida wants or needs. People down in Florida will have a clear choice come November.
The choice cannot be more stark, but the number of the day to remember is 40. There's a 40-point swing for Ron DeSantis. He was 20 points down before this president endorsed him and followed it up with a rally in Florida on July 31st. And I can't think of a candidate in this country who's leaned in more to the presidential endorsement than Ron DeSantis. He was down 20 points, won by 20 points, a true 40-point swing, but he took that endorsement from the president and he wore it very proudly. He incorporated it in his paid media campaign. He talked about it. And he's indicating to the people of Florida he will be a reliable supporter of the Trump agenda of lower taxes and fewer regulations, all the while respecting the states and local communities in the way that they are administering to the needs of their citizenry. The other reason I want to mention the number 40 is that's how many days the president has committed to being on the campaign trail for these midterms. Yep. And that is above his two immediate presidential predecessors. He's very committed, as is the vice president and others across the administration, to going in and helping these candidates. And you see he's using his considerable social media platform to do that just a few minutes ago. In Arizona, this nation's first female combat pilot won a crowded primary there, and to take over retiring Senator Jeff Flake's seat in Arizona, Martha McSally, she won last night. All three of those candidates know the president, asked the president for his endorsement. His patience paid off. The voters of Arizona have spoken. And in Oklahoma, an outsider businessman, a successful businessman with very little political experience, won that primary. And so, beating a local mayor. And so you see the effect of the Trump presidency throughout these primary results. And this is a president who's made very clear, just like he did in 2016, in 2018, he will be the most prominent campaigner-in-chief out there helping these candidates who agree with his agenda.
So, Kellyanne, moving over to Capitol Hill, as you know, DOJ official Bruce Ohr was testifying yesterday behind closed doors. President Trump has talked about Bruce Ohr, wondering why he's still employed at the Justice Department. What did you think yesterday of the revelations we learned about Fusion GPS, his wife Nellie, and the conflicts with the Clinton campaign?
Well, the most important thing to back up here, Katie, is who is Bruce Ohr and why is he testifying in the first place? Let's do a little primer for everyone. We know that there's an investigation going on into the Trump campaign and the so-called collusion, which doesn't have legal significance, the New York Times said last July. But where is the investigation on the other side? Jim Comey's gone, Andrew McCabe is gone, Strzok and Page are gone, and Ohr remains. Who is Bruce Ohr? He's somebody who in text messages or emails was communicating directly with the folks who were involved in the dossier. His wife, of course, worked for the research firm Fusion GPS that was feeding the shoddy research into the dossier. He was communicating directly with Christopher Steele. And so what people will say on text and in emails or to their friends and their family members, and certainly what they say on TV, fundamentally different than when you're under oath. I think Lanny Davis discovered that recently as well, as has CNN. But this is an incredibly important testimony because it does show that Americans, in the interest of accountability and transparency, do have a right to know what was going on the other side. Sure, that woman lost the presidency, but just because she lost doesn't mean that we shouldn't know everything that was happening on the other side to rig the system. The fix was in against candidate Trump. And I'm just amazed. I'm not amazed he won because I was on TV saying it. I got all the tapes if you want to see them ever. But the fact is that it's amazing that he won under the circumstances of this rigged system. People at the highest echelons of the FBI and the DOJ trying to deny him the election. And then once he won during transition, trying to deny him a smooth transition in our democratic process into his presidency.
All right, a couple of things on this. On Bruce Ohr, I remember in the text message that he's going back and forth with Christopher Steele He's the hired gun investigator that put his people in place to look for any type of Trump collusion in Russia we didn't know about. And he said they're concerned about Sally Yates. Now that Sally Yates is fired, I know you're upset, basically. Who do I use if you're fired? This is the text message exchange.
Who do I use?
Yeah, who do I use? So Sally Yates, are we getting closer and closer to the Obama White House?
Well, Sally Yates, remember, was the acting attorney general and for a while, and she obviously is very prominent, has a security clearance, I believe, or would have. And listen to the words that are being used about a taxpayer supported, taxpayer paid, funded, high up in the FBI and the DOJ, Bruce Orr. This man is saying, who do I use if not you? Right. He's admitting. The man who came up with the dossier, French word for a load of bunk, the man who came up with the dossier was putting it together, by the way, a dossier that many people in the media who endorsed Hillary Clinton could not verify and could not use before the election for a reason. And this man was in cahoots with people very high up at the FBI and the DOJ, Christopher Steele. And who can I use? In other words, who's my next patsy? Who's the next person who will help me? The other thing I want your viewers to remember or to know is so much of this was going on during the transition, after the election was over, after the people of this country spoke democratically. 306 electoral votes wanted Donald Trump to be their president, and yet they were still feverishly and very nervously, if you look at some of those communications, trying to put the fix in after they failed to do it the first time. So we have a right to know.
We do, and we understand that Robert Mueller, according to Mr. Orr, has not interviewed Mr. Orr. And then you've got John Huber, the U.S. attorney from out in Utah, who's been called in to look at the mismanagement at the FBI. Right. And apparently he hasn't talked to Bruce Orr either, who is so consequential. But let's go back to the campaign. And when James Comey said, you know what, we're not going, there's no there regarding the email, she didn't break any rules, we're not going after her, which was not actually her call, his call. The president tweeted this out. Hillary Clinton emails, many of which are classified information, got hacked by China. Next move better be by the FBI or DOJ, or after all of their other missteps, Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, or FISA, dirty dossier, etc., their credibility will be gone forever. So there's the president talking about a story that was out there yesterday. You might not find it on Google, but essentially what it says is that the Chinese were able to hack into her computer, into her email system, and they were looking at her classified information in real time. You have 1 minute.
Well, this is easy to break down for your viewers and for everybody else. The fact is that the president continues to feel frustration, as do many of us, that Hillary Clinton got away with all these emails. BleachBit, 33,000 are still missing. We also know so many of the classified emails were on Uma Abedin and Anthony Weiner, their computer. Let's not forget that. And so the way the classified information was being handled by somebody who had been a U.S. Senator and a Secretary of State who knew better about classified information, confidential information indeed. But the president has always tried to show how unfair and imbalanced the entire approach was. And since you mentioned it, let's go back to the May 9th, 2017 memo that was put together by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. He presented it to the Attorney General, who presented it to the president. And in that memo, Rod Rosenstein makes clear that the way Jim Comey handled the investigation was out of his lane, certainly, but also it broke all types of protocol. The textbook example of how to handle such investigations, and that it said if people of differing minds agree on one thing, it's that Comey was out of bounds.
Well, there you go.
And when the president says lack of credibility for the DOJ and FBI, he means among those people, not the rank and file, among those people who were trying to put the fix in against him before the election, after the election, before inauguration, probably after inauguration, and then also those who refused to investigate it thusly at this moment.
Man, oh man, there's so much going on. All right.
Very
Kelly,
million.
Thank you for
Just
joining us.
another Wednesday here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Brian, what's coming up? Democrats want free health care for everyone, and this candidate for the governor